You are 12 years old. It is 4 a.m. Someone is shaking you awake. Not your mother, not a priest. Your master, a man whose hands permanently smell like vinegar and camphor, is shoving a leather mask into your face. It has a long beak, stuffed with rotting herbs. He tells you to put it on. You don't ask why. You already know. The bodies started piling up 3 days ago. Today you will carry 17 of them. Tomorrow, 23. By the end of the month, you will have touched more corpses than most soldiers see in a war. And here's the part nobody tells you. 60% of plague doctors' apprentices were dead within a year, not the patients. You. Welcome to 14th century Europe. Welcome to the Black Death. And welcome to the worst job in human history. Here's something your textbook won't tell you. Most plague doctors weren't respected physicians. They were the people nobody else wanted to hire. Real doctors, educated, trained, connected, fled the cities the moment Black Death arrived. Can you blame them? They understood, even without germ theory, that proximity meant death. So cities like Venice, Florence, and Paris were left scrambling. They needed someone to manage the sick, someone to certify the dead, someone to walk into infected houses and take count. They hired basically anyone willing, and willing men brought their apprentices. You might have been the son of a craftsman whose father owed your master a debt. You might have been an orphan taken in precisely because your master needed hands that could carry weight. You might have been sold into apprenticeship by a family that could no longer feed you. You didn't choose this. The job chose you, and now you're in it. The mask, the most famous object in medieval medicine, also completely useless. Let's talk about that mask. The beak was designed by Charles Delorme, physician to 3 French kings, around 1619. It came standard with a leather coat, wide-brimmed hat, glass eye covers, and that long bird-like beak packed with herbs. Lavender, mint, camphor, myrrh, rose petals. The theory? Bad air caused plague, miasma. The herbs filtered the stench of death, and therefore, they believed, filtered disease itself. It was completely wrong. Plague spread through flea bites and, in the mnemonic form, through the air directly. No herb pouch was stopping that. But here's where it gets complicated. The leather coat and gloves, those actually helped, somewhat. Not for the reason doctors thought, but because they reduced direct contact with infected material. You, as the apprentice, often didn't get the full suit. Full regalia was expensive. Masters wore the mask. You wore a linen cloth over your face, soaked in vinegar, tied behind your head. You thought it protected you. It mostly just smelled terrible. A day in the life, 14 hours, you would not wish on anyone. Your day begins before sunrise. First task, the death cart. You walk alongside it through the street, knocking on doors of known infected houses. When nobody answers, and often nobody does, you go inside. The smell hits before you touch the door. You learn quickly to breathe through your mouth. Then you learn that breathing through your mouth is also terrible. There is no good option. Inside, you check for survivors. You check for a pulse. You drag the dead, sometimes still warm, into the street for collection. One historian recorded that during the peak of Black Death in Florence, 1,000 people died per day in one city alone. You are not one person, but you understand the math. Midday, if you are lucky, you eat. But you eat outside. Your master forbids you from entering any food space in your normal clothes. You strip at the door, wash in vinegar water, and dress again. Afternoons are for the sick, the ones still alive. Your master diagnoses. You assist. You hold down patients during lancing. Because yes, one of the primary treatments for the black swellings, the buboes, was cutting them open. The screaming you get used to faster than you think. By evening, you burn the bedding of the dead, straw mattresses, blankets, sometimes furniture. Cities mandated this. Entire city blocks smelled permanently of ash and vinegar. You return home, you do not sleep well. You do it again tomorrow. The money, why anyone did this at all. Here is the part that surprises people. Plague doctors were well paid, extraordinarily well paid. Cities desperate for anyone willing to work offered contracts with guaranteed salaries, regardless of how many patients died. Venice paid their plague doctors the equivalent of a senior magistrate's annual income. Some cities offered complete debt forgiveness. housing, food allowance. Your master was, in a grim sense, one of the most financially secure people in the city. You, his apprentice, received a fraction of that. But you received something. In a world where Black Death was bankrupting entire merchant families overnight, having consistent income was not nothing. Some apprentices who survived went on to become full plague doctors themselves. Those who lasted long enough built reputations. Medical knowledge, even imperfect, even wrong, was still rare. It had value. Survival was its own kind of credential, the real danger, and why 60% never made it out. Most apprentices didn't die from a single dramatic exposure. They died from accumulation. Every day of contact raised the odds, and plague wasn't the only danger. Typhus lived in the same overcrowded spaces. Dysentery moved through infected water. Smallpox didn't care that you were already dealing with something else. Your immune system, already stressed from poor nutrition and overwork, simply failed. Some apprentices were taken by the very patients they treated, not from disease but from desperation. Infected people, terrified, sometimes violent, attacked the figures who came to remove their family members. Others died from the psychological weight. Medieval sources record what we would today call acute trauma, men who simply stopped functioning, stopped eating, stopped moving. The church called it loss of will to live. We would call it something else. And yet, here is the part that should make you pause. New apprentices kept arriving. Every time one died, another took the position. Because outside the infected city walls, starvation was just as certain as death, only slower. This was the calculation a 12-year-old made in 1348. It is not so different from calculations children make today in other desperate places. The names change. The math does not. The Black Death killed between 30 and 60% of Europe's entire population. We talk about it in terms of numbers, casualty estimates, economic collapse, the collapse of feudalism. We rarely talk about the 12-year-olds dragging bodies through cobblestone streets at 4 a.m. We rarely talk about what it costs to keep a civilization, even a dying one, functioning. History remembers the disease. It forgets the labor. The apprentices had no names in the records. They were listed, if at all, as assistants, helpers, unnamed, but every body that was buried, every house that was cleared, every city that managed to survive, that work passed through their hands first. Bathed in death, forgotten by history. That's what this channel is for.